The alarm tore through the station before I even opened my eyes. Red light spilled across the metal walls of my quarters, and the floor shook under a distant impact that rattled every bolt in the hull. I grabbed my jacket, shoved my boots on without lacing them, and ran. My name is Ethan Cole, and I was the only human soldier stationed on Velkaris, a trading post built on the edge of Shakari space. I was not supposed to be a hero. I was supposed to translate documents and stand quietly at diplomatic dinners. But when the corridor lights flickered and a second explosion rocked the deck beneath my feet, none of that mattered anymore. Smoke curled along the ceiling vents as I sprinted toward the command wing. Shakari staff ran past me in the opposite direction, their tall, thin bodies flashing a deep, frightened violet. I grabbed one of the guards by the arm. "What is happening?" I shouted, my voice cracking through the noise. "Raiders," he said, breathless. "They came through the lower dock. They are hunting the princess." My stomach dropped. Princess Valeth. I had spoken to her only once, weeks earlier, at a quiet reception nobody else seemed to care about. She had been shy and soft-spoken, hiding in the shadows of that ballroom like she wanted to disappear. I remembered the way she laughed when she forgot to be careful. I remembered thinking she deserved a calmer world than the one she had been born into. Now that world was under attack, and she was the target. I did not think. I just ran toward the sound of gunfire instead of away from it. The lower dock was chaos. Sparks rained from a broken support beam. Raiders in dark armor moved through the smoke like shadows with guns, cutting down anyone who stood in their path. I ducked behind a supply crate as a beam of energy scorched the wall above my head. Through the haze, I saw her. Princess Valeth was pressed against a maintenance door, two of her guards lying motionless on the floor beside her. Her crest was flat against her skull, and her skin had turned a color I had never seen before, a pale gray that looked almost like fear given form. She was alone, and the raiders were closing in. I did not have a plan. I had a pistol, half a magazine, and a promise I made to myself in that half-second before I moved. I would not let her die in that hallway. I broke from cover and fired twice, dropping the nearest raider before he even turned. The second one spun toward me, and I threw myself sideways as his shot tore through the crate I had just been hiding behind. My shoulder hit the floor hard, but I rolled, aimed, and fired again. He fell. More were coming. I could hear their boots pounding down the corridor behind them, shouting orders in a language I did not understand and did not need to. "Move," I shouted at the princess, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the maintenance door. Her hand was shaking, but she did not resist. She trusted me, even though I had given her no reason to, other than one conversation and a story about spilled food rations. We ran together through a narrow service corridor, the sound of the raiders echoing behind us. Pipes lined the walls, hissing steam that stung my eyes. Every few seconds another impact shook the station, and I wondered how much longer the whole structure would hold together. "This way," she said suddenly, pulling me toward a side passage I would never have noticed. Her voice was steadier than I expected. "It leads to the old cargo lift. It is small. It is not on their maps." I followed her lead, trusting her the same way she had trusted me. We reached a narrow lift shaft hidden behind a panel of rusted metal. She pressed her palm against a hidden scanner, and the door groaned open just as the raiders rounded the corner behind us. I turned and fired the last of my magazine to buy us a few seconds, then shoved her into the lift and pulled the door shut behind us. The metal box shuddered as it rose, the sound of gunfire fading below. For a moment, there was only silence and the hum of old machinery. She was breathing hard, pressed into the corner of the lift, her hands still trembling. I realized I was breathing just as hard, adrenaline burning through every part of me. "Are you hurt?" I asked. She shook her head, though her eyes told a different story. She was terrified, and she was trying very hard not to show it. "They killed my guards," she whispered. They came for me because of the treaty. My father wants peace with the outer colonies. Not everyone agrees with him. I understood then. This was not a random attack. Someone wanted to stop the treaty, and killing the princess was their plan to do it. The lift shuddered to a stop between decks, and the lights flickered once before dimming to a soft emergency glow. I checked the control panel. Something had jammed the mechanism, maybe damage from the earlier explosions. We were stuck, at least for a few minutes, hidden in the dark while the battle raged somewhere below us. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, pulling her knees toward her chest. I sat down across from her, keeping my eyes on the door, listening for footsteps that never came. "I thought I was going to die back there," she said quietly. "You didn't," I said. "You're still here." "Because of you." "Because of both of us," I said. "You found the way out, I just carried the gun." She studied me for a moment, her pale gray color slowly warming toward something softer, something closer to silver. In the dim light of the broken lift, with smoke still drifting somewhere far below, and the entire station on the edge of chaos, she looked less like a princess, and more like a girl who had almost lost everything in one terrifying night. "You're beautiful," I whispered, the words slipping out before I could stop them, the same way they had the first time I met her. "Even now, especially now." Her eyes widened, and for a second she seemed to forget the danger completely. Her crest lifted, and she pushed herself up too quickly, forgetting she was still sitting against a curved metal wall. Her foot slipped, and she pitched sideways, nearly falling flat before I caught her arm and steadied her. "You almost fell over," I said, unable to hide a small, tired smile despite everything. "You should not say things like that," she said, her voice caught somewhere between embarrassment and disbelief, her skin flashing a deep violet that had nothing to do with fear this time. "Not now. Not when soldiers are trying to kill me." "I know," I said, "but it's true, and I did not want to wait until it was safe to say it because right now nothing feels safe." She looked away, but she did not let go of my arm. Somewhere below us, the sound of fighting had grown quieter, replaced by the low hum of station defense turrets finally coming online. Help was arriving. I could hear it in the distant rhythm of return fire. Steady and organized instead of chaotic. "They are pushing the raiders back," she said, listening carefully. "My father's guard must have reached the lower deck." As if in answer, the lift shuddered back to life, the emergency lights brightening as full power returned to the shaft. We began moving upward again, slow and steady, carrying us away from the danger below. When the doors finally opened, we stepped out into a hallway filled with station security and medical staff rushing in every direction. Someone shouted the princess's name, and within seconds she was surrounded by guards checking for injuries, relief flooding their faces when they saw she was alive. I stood back, letting them do their job, watching her disappear into a crowd of people who finally understood how close they had come to losing her. Before she was pulled fully away, she looked back at me one more time. Her color had settled into a calm, steady silver, the same color I remembered from our very first conversation, back when the only danger in the room was awkward silence. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying over the noise, "for everything." "Any time," I said. "Try not to fall over again." A small laugh escaped her, quiet but real, before the guards guided her away down the corridor and out of sight. I stayed there for a long moment, my hands finally starting to shake now that the danger had passed. My shoulder ached where I had hit the floor and my ears still rang from the gunfire, but none of that mattered. She was alive. That was the only thing that mattered. Later that night, after the raiders had been driven off and the station began the slow work of counting its losses, I received a message on my communicator. It was short, written in careful, formal trade common, the kind used only for messages of real importance. It simply said that the princess wished to speak with me again, whenever I was ready. I read it twice, then closed my eyes and let myself breathe for the first time in hours. Whatever came next, whatever politics or danger still waited in the days ahead, I knew one thing for certain. I had told her the truth in the middle of chaos, when there was no time for careful words or polite distance, and she had heard me. Sometimes the most honest words come out exactly when the world is falling apart around you. And sometimes, against every possible odd, they are the words that matter the most.